Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back again in another episode. In this episode, we will dig deep to analytically analyze every nuts and bolts of the structures of sentences that we are presenting to you here. The reason of which is very simple: to understand the anatomy of the English structure, the fabrics of the sentences, the spectrum of expressions that we normally see in daily use, written and spoken English. There is a continuum of structures and sentences that we come across often in regular daily English communication, and we just need to know what they are. Now, piecing this out is going to take some time, and longevity of time is going to be the deciding factor of whether you're going to be able to get a grasp of these structures or not. So, the whole purpose of this presentation of the text is to let you have a better understanding of the English structure, the sentences. The pronunciation is the most important priority for our field of analysis here. Joanna bought new clothes with the money. I think this sentence, for any regular basic reader, can read it. And I am not an exception here. But why am I presenting to you something that is readable by the majority of people, and then just looking at it is not going to be enough to understand what the story is about? The whole purpose of this podcast is very simple: to let you understand how the words are pronounced, the meaning of each one of the words from multiple dimensions, which is, in my theory, based on experiential learning, of course, and experiential contact with EFL/ESL learners, that if we look at the word from multiple dimensions, we will get a sense of what that word is, and that warranties the fact that this word will stick in our memory for very, very, very long time, unless somebody gets a Parkinson disease or some sort of dementia. So they, God forbid, forget the whole thing of what we call English or language in general. When we talk about the structure of these sentences, the most salient feature that I can have here and I can present to you is the simplicity of the text. And this is something a lot of famous, prestigious writers and institutions say. You don't need, well, there are actually many advocates of the fact that whether you use very sophisticated expressions to indicate that you are a sophisticated writer/speaker, or you just use the simple strategy or policy of presenting something to lay people, to people who understand only the basic English, and that is not going to confuse them for the sophisticated level of academic expressions. Now, which approach we take is highly dependable on the context of use, where you use it. So the location, the time, the whole climate or atmosphere of the use of that kind of expression. Sometimes for people like professors, they really love, because that's their bread and butter. They really love people to use the common academic expressions. However, the case is highly dependable on the context, as I said, because if you talk to people in government institutions or in places that do not use formal/academic expressions as their daily communication terminology, that thing might ricochet. So we just need to take it with a grain of salt. Apparently, because the fact that not everyone likes to use academic and formal expressions. The idea here is not to focus on the accent, but to focus on the standard court of pronunciation. Because once you say the word, there might be dimensions to this word, whether geographically speaking, you're within the territory of UK, Britain, or the United States slash Canada or Australia. However, the accent might vary, but that's not relevant in a sense to the context of use. When we talk about English, as long as you say it correctly, as long as you get your point across, that's actually fulfilling the objective of language. So it is very important we keep that in mind. It's very important that we bear that thing in mind, that once we look at the structure of these sentences and try to pronounce each one of the words correctly, that's enough. You don't need to fabricate certain kind of accents just to indicate that you're a native speaker. I have reiterated that so many times. I'm sorry, my coffee is getting cold, so I just need to make sure that I drink it. I take a sip of this coffee before it gets cold. Joanna bought new clothes with the money. Now, if we look at the sentence, some people say clothes, some people say clothes. And when you look at the word in parentheses here, you see that you have an option of saying the th or not saying it. And there is no law enforcement or language law enforcement, LLE, language law enforcement, or grammar Nazis that say, well, you gotta say it this way or that way. You got the option, and language is so flexible within territory and border lines to some extent that you can say it this way or that way. But you cannot say clothes. This is absolutely a non-standard English. There is incorrect, standard, non-standard, academic slash formal way of saying language, and the sociolinguists and anthropologists actually advocate for the flexibility of language. There's always this neutrality of pronunciation that we just need to advocate for. Otherwise, the whole thing is going to be a mess. We need to make sure that the way we pronounce it is within the territory of the common pronunciation. Otherwise, language without rules is not a language. There might be some demarcation to certain dialects that we should not, cross the borders of. Because once you cross the border, you might shift to talk in a heavy or thick accent. We call it thick accent. An accent that might not be understood by the whole group of people. Joanna bought new clothes with money, a good hat, shirt, and trousers. Some people say trousers, some people say trousers. Now, am I making it so much different? No, it still makes sense. But if you say trousers, that's not a standard way of saying the word. And that will resort to not considering it as a correct form of English. There's English correctness. But this word might be shifted in terms of use because this word is usually, contextualized within the sense that sometimes the politics implies that you should use this word instead of that word. The N word should never be used, but you have to replace it with certain sort of manipulation or amelioration to not indicate that this word, because it's really a bad word in English. It's actually one of the worst words in English, the N word. So you got to be very careful to describe this ethnicity or that ethnicity or this sect or that sect. The way we use terms in English are indicators of our education and background and learning trajectory. So it is very important we advocate for the correctness, for neutrality, for the standard, which I don't believe there is, because there's no stratum or stratum of languages out there. We cannot give a priority to American English over British or vice versa, because all comes down to the way we look at the pronunciation and the point that we can make sense of and make the audience have the audience have a sense of. Otherwise, language is not going to be conceived as something understood or context suitable. Boots to take her home. Look, going back here to the point that the word close, actually, very interesting that this word has multiple variations. There's the British variation and there's the American variation. And there are certain replacements to this word, like garments, articles of clothing, dress, attire, garb, dress, wear, wardrobe, outfit, costume, turnout, and finery. Some of these are very standard, some of them you haven't come across at all. Interestingly speaking, because some of them have an expired date that they have expired. People don't normally use them in regular use. So we do not resort to using them unless we want to first talk about something that has to do with literary, poetic, rhetorical purpose. Two, we want to show the other person or audience that we are well educated and well informed in this kind of terms. Three, we are in a conversation with specialists or elite people who happened to be using these terms quite often and regularly in their daily use. So, most of the time, the word attire, business attire, is when you wear a suit, black suit, usually with a tie, to, participate in an event or a venue where you present something to people in a very formal way. A thick coat, a thick coat. Now, usually the word thick coat collocate with each other because the word thick is attributed to the kind of coats that we use in winter. So for winter in the mountains or mountains, I had a teacher back when I was a student in the United States, and she usually used to say mountains. And I could feel the butteriness of her pronunciation. It was so beautifully said. So she used to say mountains, but that's a Californian accent. It's called a valley accent. And the valley accent means the Silicon Valley accent or the Valley of California in general, where they try to extend certain kind of tonalities to the sound that just makes it so spoiled and so delicate. So, for example, when they talk, you can watch a short video for Emilia Clarke, where she's a British, of course, and she's asked by the moderator of the interview to act as a Valley Girl speaker. And she starts talking, Joanna bought a new clothes with her money, a good hat, a shirt, and trousers. So they extend the kind of R's at the end, for example, boots to take her home. So that's the kind of accent that people usually make use of when they talk in certain geographic places like California or the Valley of California. She had enough money. She had enough money left to do something, to do some shopping at the market too. She bought silk carpets. She bought silk carpets. Bought. She bought, not boat. She bought. She bought. She bought. She bought. Silk carpets. Silk carpets. Silk carpets. Look, there is rhyming between the K and C here. Silk carpet. Silk carpet. It's K by K. It's a K by K. So silk carpets. Silk carpets. Silk carpets. Fine wool. Fine wool. Bags of spices and more. Look, let's get back here. And you notice that I'm stressing every single word here. This is not the regular reading that you come across on YouTube, because this is a pronunciation class. It's a workshop to enhance the horsepower of your pronunciation, of your language/pronunciation skills. So everything here is amplified, stressed, intensified, manipulated in a way that we deliver a better version of pronunciation for each single block or brick in the wall of the beautiful painting here that is called reading passage, rhetorically speaking, metaphorically intended. Joanna bought new clothes with the money. A good hat. Now I'm not saying the stop. A good hat, shirt and trousers. Look, and trousers. I'm kind of like creating a bridge here between and trousers or and trousers. I'm just fusing the d and t because they are produced in the same place, almost approximately the same place. Boots to take her home. Boots to take her home. Boots to take her home. Look, boots to take her home. Boots to take her home. A thick coat for winter in the mountains or mountains. A thick coat for winter. For winter in the mountains. And a new bigger bag. She had enough money left to do something. She had enough money left to do some shopping. She had enough money. She had enough money. She had enough money. She had enough money left to do some shopping. At the market too. She bought silk carpets. Fine wool, bags of spices, and more. Look, and more. Very important. You pay attention to the way that we say this kind of sound. It's very important that you keep it in mind. After a busy day, she returned to one special shop. Now, one special, there are two adjectives that describe the shop. And usually any preceding adjective or adjectives describe the antecedent noun here. There, she bought back her mother's stole. She bought back. Look, she bought back. It's like a music workshop. So you got to pay attention and advocate for this kind of pronunciation very carefully. And then she went back to her lucky street with all the beautiful things. And this thing, we don't often come across this kind of sound in Arabic. So you got to make it very special attention for things. She had bought at the market. Look how we say these sounds collectively in a cluster. Now, most of the sounds that you come across in this kind of passage, they come in harmony, in unison, in uniformity. So when we say them, we don't say them separately unless I'm stressing each one of the words for the sake of tutoring you, teaching you how to say the sound, enunciate the word correctly. This is the whole purpose of this workshop, is to help you understand, get exposure to listening. Plus, see how we come across each one of the words and how we say them within the context of use. Have a wonderful day. And I look forward to seeing you in another podcast. Please subscribe to the channel. Try to make sure that you share these kind of lessons because we exert so much effort to designing them and posting them. It takes so many hours actually. And what you see is the product. It's not the process of how we design these kind of lessons. So that's very important to bear in mind once you navigate this kind of podcast episodes. Thank you very much. مدرب اللغة وليد خالد.